During one of my streams a while ago, someone asked me if I could get Riley Reid to come on the podcast, to talk about wieners, vaginas, pussies, and RuneScape, just the normal type of porn talk on the podcast. And I responded saying I don't think Riley Reid would ever want to do that because she doesn't like me, personally. And that led to me telling the story of the beef between Riley Reid and myself. Beef being the wrong word, but for lack of a better term, the bad blood between us. Although this was a while ago, so I'm sure she probably doesn't remember or just doesn't care anymore. But now, ever since I told that story on a stream, people are constantly asking me during streams to tell the story again. And it's kind of cute, kind of like, a kid asking their grandfather who fought in Vietnam to tell them war stories that they've heard a million times from him, except in my case, the only war I fought was on the shores of Riley Reid's butthole. So I figured I'd make a video dedicated to telling the story. So it all started when I made a video about Riley Reid's abominable rap, which remains today one of the worst raps I've ever heard. Now there's definitely a lot worse raps on YouTube from small channels with like 30 views, maybe from like Old Pop Hickey Yokel's barnyard rap ballad about cunnilingus on his animals and making love to his sister, or maybe a chemistry professor's educational rap that's just fucking horrible. But those aren't fully produced raps. Those are all very amateur attempts at it, so I don't really count those as actual raps. Riley Reid had a team behind her and fully produced, so it was a genuine attempt at it, and it was fucking horrible. The worst I'd heard in that department. So I stand by that. I stand by that analysis. On the moist meter, that'd be a 5%. Now, when I published the video, I was made aware she wasn't too happy with my critique of her song here. And I can understand why, because it's clear she put a lot of heart and soul in that. There was inspired lyrics in there, such as, spit stringing from my mouth, let you fuck my face, good nutritious nut. And who could forget when she really takes it home with, jerk it out, jerk it out, jerk it out, beat it out, beat it out, beat it out, jerk it out, jerk it out, beat it out, jerk it out. So I can understand when I insulted her magnum opus of music, that she wasn't too happy with that. And that's when it really started, when I made that video. So she didn't like that I made that, she didn't like me, and then about 2 or 3 months after that, I went on her Twitter page, just browsing and perusing, learning more than anything. Well, honestly, I was just looking for titties, for lack of a better cover story. I went through a lot of different porn stars' pages just to see what productions they were taking part in, really. But while on Riley Reid's, I noticed she had retweeted some fan art. And let me tell you what, that fan art, bingo, bango, bongo, that's the epitome of fan art right there. What it was a crayon drawing of Riley Reid spreading her ass cheeks apart and just having her brown balloon nut winking at the camera. It was fucking beautiful. And I saw this, and I made a tweet about it. It was a very vague tweet. I didn't say what porn star. All I said was, haha, I just saw, porn star's fan art with her gaping asshole in crayon. It was great. And then I guess people found it and told the artist that I said that. And then the artist called me an asshole, and then Riley Reid retweeted that saying I'm an asshole, so then they were just double teaming me. And, it all stemmed because, come on, it's a crayon drawing of a porn star's asshole. How's that not entertaining? I don't want to show the fan art, but instead I took it upon myself to try and doodle it myself. I did 2 attempts here, neither one of them really capture it. This was my first attempt. It doesn't really convey what it looked like. This looks more like a God of War enemy. So then I tried again. And this one just kind of looks like a Wallace and Gromit character doing some naughty shit. This isn't what the fan art looked like. It definitely looked a lot better than this. And I went on the artist's page, and she's talented. But this particular piece, I had a giggle about. Come on. You got a porn star spreading her fucking chocolate starfish, and you're doing it in crayon? That's great. That's gonna put a smile on anyone's face. And to be totally honest, as far as crayon drawings of porn stars spreading their fudge cutters go, this is probably the best it can ever get. It was really well done. I could see where the asshole was. I could see the butthole clearly. There was even some labia draping down like some beef curtains. And the pose was really well conveyed. Like you could see the stretching of the ass cheeks, pulling it apart and seeing what's between them. It was really well done. It had a side by side so you could see what the pose was not in crayon and then in crayon. Really well translated. But I honestly don't know why they both got so offended about me making it a joke. I thought the piece was done lightheartedly as just kind of like, hey, look at this little doodle I did. You remember when you did that photo shoot where you spread your butthole wide? Well, here it is in crayon. Oh, that's cool. Retweet. I didn't know it was going to be a hill you want to die on defending it as some type of artistic masterpiece or anything. Like if someone out there wanted to make a fan art of me with my legs over my head and soft dick slapping me in the face and they did it out of Sharpie or Legos or pipe cleaner or something, I'd be like, haha, that's entertaining, that's cool. And then if people start turning into a joke, I don't think they turn to me and be like, defend this. I'd be like, well, at the end of the day, that's my soft cock slapping me in my face out of some goofy material, you know what I mean? That's probably worth making a joke out of. But, anyway, that's why Riley Reid doesn't like me and probably will never come on the podcast. If I'm wrong, Riley, and you do want to come on the podcast, just go ahead and reach out to me on Twitter. But yep, there's the story, and that's it. See ya. Earlier this year, I made that video talking about how Jackson, Danny, Matt, and I were going to be writing a full-fledged porn production for a very well-known company in the industry. It was going to be a very expensive budget from the company, and it was going to be an episodic release. In total, we made a runtime of something that would go right around like 4 hours, so it was basically the fucking Lord of the Rings of porn. And we created an actual masterpiece. If you took all of the porn out of our porno, it would still be an American classic, like a really fucking great movie. But unfortunately, we did all of that before the pandemic hit and shut everything down, fucked everyone in the ass. So they never actually made our porn series. And I thought it'd just be a real waste to let this sacred script go into obscurity and forgotten, lost to the tides of time. So I thought it'd be fun to at least share some of episode 1 with all of you. I don't want to give away any of the big twists or developments in the universe we've created, because who knows, maybe we shop the script around and it lands a home on Amazon Prime as Rian Johnson's Knives Out sequel. So just in case, to err on the side of caution, I'm only going to share with you like the main points in some of the dialogue so you can see where we were going and what we're setting up, but I'm not going to reveal any of the big shit to you. You're just going to have to sit there and salivate waiting to see if this will ever be finished. So, to break it down in a nutshell, it's called The Fucking at Rock Hard Manor. For what it's worth, I thought that title was way too aggressive. It comes out raw, no rubber right away. I just didn't really like the title of it too much, but that I was overruled by the group, so that's the title, The Fucking at Rock Hard Manor. And it is a murder mystery thriller pants filler. So it's basically just think of Knives Out. I think that's a really good example right away. So as you can likely imagine, the story takes place in Rock Hard Manor, where Shock Rockhard has called together his closest friends and business partners to celebrate the creation of the Good Sensation Mark I. The Good Sensation Mark I device was created by none other than the esteemed inventor, Dr. Zachariah Good Sensation. The Good Sensation Mark I is basically a ray gun that cures PTSD. Well, actually, think of it less of a ray gun and more like the microwave emitter from Batman Begins that fucking vaporizes all the water in Gotham. It's that, but it cures PTSD. Now, if I may, I'd like to read you some dialogue from Dr. Zachariah Good Sensation. This is when he's trying to flirt with some of the women attending this celebration. This is unlike anything you've ever seen before, I guarantee it. You don't understand. How could you, though? It's utterly ridiculous to think you could. I myself have been trapped in my lab for 3 years trying to understand it, held hostage by my own hubris, crafted from the finest polymers I could get my hands on thanks to Shock's financing. Ah, yes, such a delicate balance of madness and genius. You know, girls, if I had made even one miscalculation in the creation of this, I may have very well lost my life. And as you can likely imagine, the women were beyond impressed, sought in panties immediately. However, not too long after this interaction, something goes awry, as is standard in murder mysteries. So Shock Rockhard is making an announcement, thanking everyone for being there to celebrate this, because he's very happy. Shock Rockhard, as you well know, he's one of the most decorated veterans in the entire history of the American Armed Forces, and he unfortunately suffers from PTSD, so he had Dr. Zachariah's Good Sensation working on a device to help alleviate his troubles, as well as his other comrades. Shock Rockhard and his wife, Tootie Rockhard, are at the top of their staircase making this announcement when they ask all the attendees to raise their glass in a toast. However, the lights turn off. A loud, euphoric moan is heard, followed by the sound of a body tumbling down the stairs. It sounds like 10 wet potatoes all getting pushed down a staircase at once. The lights turn back on, and everyone horrified as they see Shock Rockhard's lifeless body at the base of the staircase. Who could have murdered Shock Rockhard? He had no enemies. He was loved by all. The lights were only off for a matter of seconds, and there's no visible wounds on Shock Rockhard's body, other than, of course, a couple of bruises and scrapes from tumbling down the stairs, but not enough to kill a man, and they happened after the moan. A very interesting and peculiar death. Madame Tootie Rockhard goes to check for a pulse. She realizes there's no pulse. He is pronounced dead at the scene. Then, as everyone is grieving, mourning, the doors kick in. They fly open, and smoke pours in, flooding the foyer. A shadowy figure moves through the smoke, and loud gasps and even a scream are heard from the general vicinity of the audience. And as the smoke clears, a grizzled detective emerges. It's Detective Mike Mitchell. Now, before I get into Mike Mitchell, I'd like to tell you where that name comes from. Mike Mitchell is the name of a character a buddy of mine played in a really low-budget piece-of-shit movie. He played a character named Detective Mike Mitchell, so I thought it'd be really cool just kind of to put him in here as an homage to that and keep that legacy of Mike Mitchell alive. So Detective Mike Mitchell comes in, and he immediately takes control of the scene. Mike Mitchell says, "No need to scream, ladies and gentlemen. I've heard it all before." He takes one last puff from his cigar before flicking it off to the side. Mike Mitchell slowly approaches the scene. Madame Tootie Rockhard is still face down on Shock's chest. Mike Mitchell extends his condolences. "You must be the wife of the deceased. You have my sincerest condolences, madame, but right now, you're in my crime scene." Tootie Rockhard replies, "Crime scene? What do you mean?" Mike Mitchell, "It's quite simple, really. I could see it immediately. A fall from such a height would not have killed anyone, but the evidence is on his face. A smile. Why? If he had truly died from falling, there would be no smile. No. He was already dead, madame." It would be at this point the audience is made more aware of Shock Rockhard's face, and they see the biggest smile they've ever... It's at this point the audience gets a very clear view of Shock's face. There is a massive smile on it that looks like a kid on Christmas Day, smiling from ear to ear, looking like a 9-year-old boy that just went to Disney World for the first time. Magic in his eyes, little stars in his eyes. He looks like the happiest motherfucker on the entire goddamn planet. But now that's a bit interesting, isn't it? You see, most people at the Rockhard Manor that night assume that he slipped and fell when the lights went off, but if that was the case, why would he be smiling? There'd be panic washing over his face, not a big smile. So it's a very interesting conundrum Mike Mitchell is faced with, a very difficult case he's going to have to crack. Detective Mike Mitchell then arrives at the natural conclusion that this had to have been a murder. The audience then gets to hear the thoughts of Detective Mike Mitchell, one of the greatest minds in all of detective history, putting Sherlock Holmes and L from Death Note to shame. Mike Mitchell thinks to himself, "No signs of distress, and no signs of a struggle apart from the one with gravity. The smile on his face, why? What happiness can be found in death? A minor abrasion on his L4, no doubt from the tumble down the stairs, but from my time in chiropractic school, I know there's no way that was fatal. Though the stairs are made of oak, the strongest wood available on the free market. Why oak?" Mike Mitchell immediately looks up to those kneeling around him, observing him. They seem to be waiting on his every word. Mike notices this and immediately shouts, "Someone fetch me the blueprints for this house right now." The audience confusedly looks around at each other before Dr. Zachariah Good Sensation scratches his neck nervously. Yes, Detective Mike Mitchell, right away," says Dr. Zachariah. Dr. Zachariah Good Sensation then rushes away from the crowd, and Detective Mike Mitchell returns his head towards the body of Shock Rockhard. He puts his ear to the deceased man's stomach, and the voiceover returns. His thorax is nearly shattered and his lips chapped. Circumstantial, possibly, but definitely indicative. But of what? I won't read all of the dialogue here, but Detective Mike Mitchell continues to thoroughly analyze the corpse before he begins to turn his attention to something else he noticed upon this inspection. Dear God, what is that smell? Detective Mike Mitchell then quickly stands up in disgust and covers his nose with his hand. But then he screams as he realizes his hand is covered in semen. Good Lord! It's clear to me now, everyone. This man is not only dead, but he has ejaculated as well. The crowd gasps in shock, and Tootie Rockhard is heard wailing even louder now. Mike Mitchell inspects his hand and starts to try and shake the cum off. Alessandra, the maid, walks up to Mike and wipes his hand with a paper towel. "Thanks, hon. Glad you were here to get me out of that sticky situation." As you'll soon learn, Mike Mitchell is a wisecracking one-liner straight out of an old 80s movie. The maid giggles and rushes away to dispose of the paper towel. Mike Mitchell turns to face the crowd. They're all talking amongst themselves and turn their attention back to Mike to give their entire focus. "So what's next, detective? If what you say is true and Daddy was indeed murdered, then one of us is at fault here." This was said by his daughter Vanessa Rockhard. Everyone looks uncomfortably at each other. Some individuals move apart and some awkwardly scratch their necks and take calculated sips from their champagne flutes. Detective Mike Mitchell then says that everyone needs to split up and look for clues. I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and I've brushed over a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the other context building all this up with the other characters. I just wanted to give you like the very core elements that happen to set up the events of the fucking at Rockhard Manor. So yeah, why was Shock Rockhard smiling upon his death, and why was he filled with so much cum in his trousers, so much so that it was leaking out into the hand of Detective Mike Mitchell? It truly is one of the best mysteries to ever be posed in fiction, and yeah, it's really about it. Just wanted to share a little from the porn script here. I know there was no sex at all in any of this right here, because that was like the hardest part for us to write, was putting sex in this story. We just focused on like the whole mystery narrative and coming up with good twists and turns and like an actual good world building, and putting sex in it was actually pretty difficult. So we did manage to fit it all in there in ways that make sense, but the main thing here is you'll be watching this porn for the plot, because the narrative is a fucking banger if it ever does get made, which I'm doubtful that it ever will now at this point. But either way, just wanted to share this with you. That's about it. See ya.